There's a game being played, a dangerous game. It's called Snuff Out the Flames of Dissent. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Michael Newman and The Michael Newman Show. You know, you can only have one opinion today. All other opinions, even if supported by facts, make you a bad person and you must be destroyed. This is at the heart of the political discourse that we're seeing today, as the left has turned their anger more clearly on the people of the United States and not just the president. You must believe their doctrines. You must pray to their idols and their ideologies. Anything short of total acceptance and adherence to what they believe makes you a dissenter. And as a dissenter, you must be killed. That is the left. That is the Democratic Party. And there is no one to protect you anymore. That's what we're talking about today, my friends. This Charlottesville incident continues. And when you look at what is being said, when you look at the talking heads, it's all one phraseology. There's a specific set of fake facts that must be accepted, and then we're going to debate or we're going to talk about this, and we're going to moralize about this based on this fake idea of what actually happened. By the way, welcome to the show, Michael Newman. MichaelNewmanProductions.com is the website you need to go to. That's how you get a hold of me. You can get all the links to the stories we talk about today on the website. You can contact me. Just click the contact link. Follow my Twitter, NewManiac1. You can also check out the services link. And most importantly, support the show. Just click the support icon. It's big, square, and blue right in the beginning of the website there. It takes you to a page that describes Patreon for you. And then you can go to my Patreon page and support the show for as little as $1 a month. So, what actually happened there? Well, I'll tell you what we don't know. We don't know what was in this, the guy that drove the car. We don't know what was in his head and what his plans are when we showed up. What we do know is that the police took off when Antifa showed up, and it was free reign on the people that actually had a permit to protest. Okay? We know that. We know the left has been knocking down or asking to knock down and remove monuments all over the country, which has always struck me kind of a wrong way, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I couldn't figure out why is this bugging me so much. And then I figured it out. We'll explain that in just a second. So you've got Antifa, and there's video out there, and you can see what happened. Antifa, this quote-unquote fascist, anti-fascist group that decides to show up wherever, right-leaning people. Well, that's not even a way to describe what happened in Charlottesville. This is two left-leaning groups, okay? There's no such thing as an alt-right. The white supremacists, they are not on the right. They are devout leftists. That's what they are because of their ideology. That's what they are. All right? They're Nazis. They're leftists. Nazis are on the left. National Socialist Party, anybody? Socialist? So what we had was communists and leftists fighting it out for power. Right? But it's not just, when the communists are out, it's not just attacking other leftists like the white nationalists out there. It's not just that. They're attacking normal people. Anyone that does not adhere to their ideology is ready to get a rock in the head. And in fact, that's what was happening. And when Antifa showed up, the cops took off, and there was no protection for the people that actually had a permit to be there. And there was fighting, and there was pepper spray, and there was rocks being thrown, and there was nowhere for this group of, 500 to go. And they began to fight back. Right? That's what happened. Oh, and it goes out of control. It did. And it's the fault of the government. Because like I said on the other day's show, there's always going to be groups of people that want to hurt each other. That's why we created governments. And that's why we empowered them with the gun. That's why we vested force in the government so that they could do the one thing that just government does. And that is prevent people from killing each other. That's it. Beyond that, government is acting too much and doing too much. But in this case, they didn't do anything. And that's the reason we had this problem. Now, if you don't believe me, Anyone that's watching what's going on here, the Washington Post is now openly calling for political violence. This is a piece from the Daily Wire that's talking about it. The Daily Wire is kind of, it's bugging me because they're not casting this correctly, because the left has been openly calling for violence for the past year now or longer, since Donald Trump has been was running for the presidency. They've been openly calling for violence. And by the way, this whole reaction, this fatigue, this anger at what happened in Charlottesville, I don't feel a quarter of that when actually a senator was shot. I didn't feel. Do you? Ask yourself that question. When a leftist goes out and picks a Republican and shoots him at random, right? Because he wants to kill Republicans, you don't, and pre-thought it out, by the way. That was a premeditated act of terrorism. Do you feel the same sort of narrative coming from mainstream media? No, they actually defended the shooting of a Republican senator. That's what they did. And now the Washington Post has finally revealed itself to be an un-American and undemocratic monster. In an editorial published Tuesday by N.D.B. Collins, an associate professor at Johns Hopkins University, the Washington Post called for direct action, as direct action is the only thing that will stop these white supremacists. So go out and attack them. Find them in their homes, whoever they are, even if you think, if there's a possibility, if there's a 1% chance that this person is a white supremacist, then just, you know what, you're going to have to kill them. They're not acceptable in our society. They're not human beings, you see. They're rats, and you can kill rats. You know, I heard that same sort of narrative coming from a guy with a funny mustache. You know, the Hitler stash, which no one has anymore, thankfully. The one good thing that he did was, you know, put a bad name to a horrible mustache. So now it's open season on those people. Far-left groups are advocating now for more fighting in the streets, even after events of the weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia, which took the life of one and injured many more. This is not stopping the radical left from continuing. Why? Because the mainstream media doesn't want to call out the radical left. This is all the white nationalists' fault. And while they are certainly involved, you have to understand the white nationalists are leftists as well. So this is all the left's fault. But they're not going to call out their brown shirts. They're not going to call out their Nazi enforcers. They're not going to call out their KKK, their new modern-day KKK, because that doesn't help them politically. And to not speak of this honestly shows you to be a true racist. Don Lemon, we'll get to him coming up. In fact, this really got me. Just a quick piece from the Blaze here. Former Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign spokesman Brian Fallon compared leftist Antifa and their protesters to soldiers storming the beaches of Normandy during World War II. That's who they are. They're going to get the Nazis. No responsibility whatsoever, regardless of what they do. Regardless of what they do. How much violence has been perpetuated by Antifa across the country? How much? How much have they been allowed to destroy and burn down and shut down? And yet they're saviors. You know, there's a couple of things that the Nazis did, the fascists did, that are sort of telltale signs of what it is to be a fascist and a Nazi. And, of course, the racial component is part of it. But a very important part of that, and any really totalitarian regime, is to stifle dissent and to prevent people from having knowledge. You see, slaveholders did the same thing. You know, slaveholders, it was illegal if you were a black person during slavery to learn to read. They didn't want slaves to be able to gain knowledge. They didn't want them to be able to realize there was some other way to live one's life and then stoke dissent and fight back. And that's pretty much what's happening today. The Nazis back in the day would have these big rallies, these book-burning parties, right? And everybody's seen the video footage on some sort of historical documentary of book burning, big pile of books and people cheering as books were thrown onto this pile, eliminating knowledge forever. And that's what got me. I realized that today, and maybe somebody else has said it. I'm sure they have made this comparison before. But this movement to knock down monuments across the country is nothing more than Nazi book burning. As a matter of fact, it's the very same as Nazi book burning. Chicago pastor, supposedly a man of God, has asked administration there to remove the names of 2 presidents who owned slaves from parks on the south side in Chicago. Here's the story from CBS.
Washington Park is named after our first president, and a statue of him on a horse stands prominently here at this park for all to see. But one pastor, as you mentioned, said it is offensive because Washington owned slaves. Bishop James Dukes is calling for the mayor and Chicago Park District to remove the name of not only George Washington, but also Jackson Park, named after President Andrew Jackson. Jackson, as you know, was the 7th president of the United States. Duke says they should not be held to such esteem and considered heroes when they participated in the slave trade. He says the changes could be as simple as naming the parks after African-American heroes like Harold Washington, Jesse Jackson, and Michael Jackson.
Oh, Michael Jackson, the child rapist. There's a good idea. Yeah, Michael Jackson, much better than George Washington, and certainly someone to aspire to, you know. Big drug addict, killed himself on propofol. You know, like to touch little boys. Would you just ask yourself this question? If given the chance, would you have smelled Michael's fingers? No? Okay. Good idea. Then she speaks to the pastor.
It represents, on one hand, a hero to some, a forefather, a revolutionary. But then for us of African-American descent, it represents a person who owned 317 slaves.
Do you think the average person, though, who looks at this statue and when they're in Washington Park thinks of slavery with President Washington? Because
that's the lack of information and knowledge, and people said we could use this statue as a way of teaching history, but all our history books never accept the president as that.
Well, that's because he's not known as that. That's because the important portion of his life that affected all of us was not the fact that he owned slaves. That's unimportant for him as a historical figure. The fact that he led this country to a win against the world's greatest superpower at the time, being Great Britain, is the reason why he is revered today, right? So that's who he is, a historical, heroic figure. So what is this all about? This is about acceptable knowledge and narrative. Literally changing history. The leftists really love to do that because they have to cover up the evils in their own history. They have to change history to make it look like they want it to look. I mean, they do the exact same thing with global warming, right? There is no global warming if you look at the proper numbers, if you look at actual data. And they know this, so they go in and they change the actual data. They change historic data, so it makes it look like it's warmer today than it was in the past. And in fact, there has been no warming for going on 22 years now, something like that. It's actually, remember Al Gore's movie, Inconvenient, whatever? They came out, was it 10 years ago? Something like that? Maybe a little bit longer. It's actually cooler now, globally, than it was when that movie came out. Sorry, but that is a fact. Now, this whole thing happens in Charlottesville, and there's a narrative that's been set. This is what you must think. And no one must dissent with it. And Shepard Smith said, we wanted to get somebody to come out and sort of defend Trump after he said the evil things that he said, but we just couldn't find anyone.
Our booking team, and they're good, reached out to Republicans of all stripes across the country today. Let's be honest, Republicans often don't really mind coming on Fox News Channel. We couldn't get anyone to come and defend him here because we thought, in balance, someone should do that. We worked very hard at it throughout the day, and we were unsuccessful.
That's because they're more interested in power than doing or saying the right thing. They perceive power as in following the narrative and not speaking up. That's why you can't get any prominent politician to come out and speak. It's real simple. People are accepting Antifa because they're leftists. And the thing is, my friends, it's very scary because the leftists are winning. No matter how much political power they lose, it doesn't really matter because they're willing to kill you to gain more. And then they've got this entire media establishment that says it's okay to kill you. If you're a white person or if you voted for a Republican, either one is reason for you to die. And that's what the people on the left thinks. That's what the Don Lemons of the world wish you to believe. Don Lemon, speaking of him, was on CNN. He was talking is sort of a group thing, and they were having a discussion. This happened on Wednesday morning, and he claimed that it's not just Trump; it's those that support Trump that are evil.
Let's just be honest. Us New Yorkers, we've known who Donald Trump was for a very long time. We've known with the Central Park Five. We've known with the housing discrimination. We've known with him and pushing the whole birther thing, which is a bunch of bull. We've known that. We know now why he's so upset. For those of you who did know, so obsessed with Barack Obama. Barack Obama was a black president. Maybe he didn't think that Barack Obama was fit to be in office. He traded on racial animus and racial BS, and he's been doing it for decades. And we're going to sit here and pretend that we're surprised? Why aren't people talking about his, and Carl Bernstein, who's been on CNN for months, talking about his fitness for office and what's going on in his head? How can anyone defend what the president said yesterday? It is indefensible. I can't believe people get up here on CNN and on other networks and actually try to defend, especially African Americans and Jewish people, to try to defend what Donald Trump said yesterday. There is no defense for what he said yesterday. What he said yesterday was disgusting. It was un-American. And anyone who is an American who believes in this country should be speaking out against this person and saying that it is wrong for him to do this. And anyone who is, let me be plainly clear, anyone who is in that White House and who is supporting him is complicit in their racism as well.
No. You're just a racist, and we're going to make a narrative. We're going to make some facts up, and if those facts benefit us, fantastic, we get to go out and kill you. See, this is how the left does it. They try to take this moral high road by creating their own facts around a situation and saying there's no possible way to defend it, and if you do, you are the enemy, you are a rat, you are lower than scum, and you deserve to die. That is how the left works. Now, I can defend what Donald Trump said simply by saying your problem with this is that he called out both sides for their violence. That's your problem with this. And your main issue is that you wish for people to believe that Antifa and Black Lives Matter are clean as a wind-driven snow, and it just ain't the truth. It just ain't the truth. And by the way, when you push that narrative on people, that makes you the racist. That makes you the evil doer. And he's not the only one. Michael Moore says, black people are so much better than white people. At least they don't vote for hate.
Yeah, you have every right to be upset that the system has let you down, the American system. But, black people have every right to be upset that the American system has certainly let them down. They don't go to the polls and vote for the hater. Black Americans, by a large margin, vote for the person who doesn't hate.
The Communist Party today, which is called the Democrat Party, is a party of hate. That's all they know. They gain power through violence. They turn groups against each other. They steal from the poor to enrich themselves and try to convince people it's in their own best interests. They are the one sole true source of hatred and evil in this country. Sorry. So I don't buy that. When you vote across the board for someone like Hillary Clinton, the most corrupt politician in the history of America, literally selling out her office, her and her husband as president of the United States, literally selling political influence for personal gain. And that's supposed to be the person that we're supposed to look up to because they're such wonderful human beings. Where the hell is the Clinton Family Crime Foundation now? Where is it? It disappeared. You know why? Because they no longer had political influence to sell, ergo couldn't make any money. Period. End of story. You're not hearing about that, are you? And they're the white knights in this situation. Give me a break. Give me a break. And by the way, according to Michael here, if you voted for Trump, well, you're the real racist.
Well, I'm not a racist, even though he might be a racist, they go to me. I'm not a racist. Really? Well, I don't, if you vote for a racist, what are you then? Because it sure sounds like racism to me.
It's the Jim Crow South all over again, except for if you're on the true right, if you're conservative, if you voted for Trump, then you're the N-word. And that's what racist means today. They have replaced nigger with racist. And that's what they scream at people. Okay? And in this little phraseology that he put together, if you vote for the racist, then you're kind of a racist, right? It's just like saying if you vote for the N-word, you're an N-word lover. They have not changed their tactics since Jim Crow. They are the same people. They hate humanity. Then he goes on to say, the vast majority of all these Trump voters, they really are racist,
I'm certain that the 63 million people that voted for him actually, vast majority of them love that press conference.
Well, not all Trump supporters.
Not all.
Racist.
I said the vast majority.
No, not all, but just the vast majority. They're just horrible racists. Just horrible. Ends. And it... The thing that scares me is I don't know when it's going to end. I really don't. It seems to be ratcheting up. I guess we could look at this and try to put a positive spin on it and say this is the death throes. Okay, the left is in the death throes. They've lost a tremendous amount of political power, even though the Republicans out there aren't acting very conservative or very right-leaning. They've still lost this far left wing of the Democratic Party has lost a tremendous amount of political power. They've lost influence across the United States. The next generation, what do they call it, Generation Y or whoever? I don't know who it is. The next generation that's coming up is the most conservative generation in years since since the 50s or whatever it is. And things are going to change in short order. And the left is seeing the writing on the wall, and they realize that their ideology is dying, and that's a good thing. But I hope, I've heard that many times. I hope that's the truth. I don't know that I buy it because it seems as if they're winning. Now, there's a piece from the Daily Wire, once again, talks about, it's a poll. It says 60% of Trump supporters say that he couldn't do anything to alienate them. And he goes through the poll here, and I'm not going to do that for you because it's kind of ridiculous, but I don't know if it's about Trump, right? I really don't. I think it has to be with 60% of the people don't buy the narratives that are being sold by the left-wing media. That's what it is. We don't buy it. When Michael Moore and Don Lemon come out and say, if you voted for Trump, you're a racist and you don't deserve life, and we're going to send Antifa to your house to kill your children, I'm sorry, we don't buy the narrative that we're all racist. We don't buy the narrative that only white people can be racist. We don't buy your garbage. All that crap that you learned in college that is fake, that is propaganda, we don't buy it. I think that's where it comes from. Now, Ebony K. Williams, Fox News contributor, she's on Fox News. And after this first initial speech that President Trump had, she was very angry at it. And she had a response, and now she's getting death threats. This is Ebony.
Your initial remarks were cowardly and dangerous, and they indeed warranted a second statement. Here's why. Your presidential campaign slogan, Make America Great Again, well, it rose many questions for many. Were Jews, blacks, gays, and Hispanics included in the return of America to her great glory years, or would some of us be left out? Well, I was legitimately unsure, but absent more conclusive evidence, I was willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. I can no longer do that, Mr. President. No more benefit, all doubt. In a moment where you could have been crystal clear where you stand on the issue of inclusion, standing up against white supremacy and domestic terrorism, you very intentionally chose to be ambiguous and to equivocate. All sides, Mr. President, please.
Please. The left never does anything wrong. Antifa never does anything wrong. You know why I think there's a strong backlash against this? Because Fox News is changing. The left has used legal means and all their buddies to kick out personalities on Fox News. They got the person that ran Fox News out, and now they're turning it into just another left-wing news source, which is what we're seeing. And this whole narrative from beginning to end was something you'd hear on MSNBC, and people that are watchers or viewers of Fox News realize that, and they realize that they're losing the media battle. We had talk radio and we had Fox News. That was it on the right, and now they've taken away one of those sources. All right, that is it for the podcast today. Thank you very much for joining the show. I am Michael Newman. Please go to the website, michaelnewmanproductions.com. There you can get the links for the stories we talked about today. You can also contact me by sending me an email. You can follow me on Twitter, Newmaniac1. That'll tell you when all the podcasts and the audio podcast, videos, podcasts, and various other things that I like to announce. It'll tell you about all that stuff coming out. And, of course, support the show. It's getting more and more difficult every day to make this show happen, and you can make it a lot easier on me if you simply go to my website, click on support, and support me on Patreon for as little as $1 a day. Have a great afternoon.
See ya!